public administration is a noble calling. I used to cringe when I first started hearing that, but it is a noble calling. I'm convinced it's very important because public administrators are looking out for people. Their interest is in the public interest. That's what they're chartered to do, and that's their orientation. And because of that, and because of the potential impact, it is really important for public administrators to be ethical and to pay attention to ethics. This module 4 is entitled To Be Just, Impartial, and Fair, and we're going to take a look at justice seeking and social equity and ethical behavior. You're still reading the Farmer book, some introductory materials, and I'll be introducing you to Mary Parker Follett, who is a woman who was writing in the turn of the century, early 1900s. Very much underrated at the time because she was a woman. She wrote about some really excellent material and excellent books on democracy and how we should engage one another. She talks about consensus, always trying to come to consensus, which is hard work, because if you're not driving for consensus, somebody's going to be left out in the end if they cave in from your pressure. So collaboration is important, but compromise always leaves a winner and loser. So she argues for consensus. That's how everybody should strive. She also points out, as Chester Barnard does earlier when we dealt with him, that people will work under authority to a point. They have what they call a zone of indifference. The zone of indifference represents an area where they have agreed with the organization's goals. They have no issues with it. However, if things start to move outside those parameters, they become uncomfortable. So then they become important. So the supervisor in an organization is only a supervisor to the extent that the supervisee will allow them to be the supervisor. There's a certain element of trust involved in all that, and authoritarian or directives or holding the gun to somebody's head works for a while, but not for long. So we'll be talking about justice seeking, which is an interesting concept, feminism, some other areas, and then dealing with social equity and ethics. And what I've done here is I've included some readings, Farmer and another book, Justice for All, 3 chapters in there that writes about social equity. And I've added 2 TED Talks with regard to a population that doesn't get a lot of attention. That's the indigenous American natives. For example, just to throw this out, Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South North Dakota, or I think it borders Montana, but I'm not sure. But anyway, Pine Ridge, a famous what we call a Sioux reservation. Right now, within our midst in the United States of America, we have this community with a life expectancy of men the same as Haiti and Afghanistan. Disease is rampant. Education is bad. Health is terrible. Life sustenance like electricity, power, and a roof over your head. The amenities of life are suffering. And they've been that way for a long time, and they don't get really a lot of attention. So I'm going to focus on that in terms of social equity. There's 2 talks. One is about a white man's experience. He was, I think, a geographer or a journalist of some sort that went to write an article on the Pine Ridge reservation, and people were really not interested in interacting with him because he was a white man. And he explains that he really became involved, and he gives a very emotional rundown on his experience at Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. So this will be an interesting module, I believe. On the Wilder School is focused on diversity and inclusion and social equity issues. And it's a very important and long neglected area in our society. So I hope you enjoy this module.